Hi again, you're welcome to News Today. Now, President John Mahama and the Asantehene have jointly commissioned the first phase of the Kumasi Airport development project. The first phase, which comprises rehabilitation of the defective runway and installation of airfield lights on the runway, is meant to facilitate night operations at the airport. From Kumasi Airport by Gifty Andwapia and Mahmoud Mohammed Nuruddin.
This airport was declared an international airport in 2003, but it was declared by MAF. Upgrading we're undertaking is not over. There is still more to come here in Kumasi Airport. The Ghana Airport Company, Nana will be happy to hear, is designing a new modern airport terminal for Kumasi. Wide-body jets up to the capacity of a Boeing 737. And as you are aware, most of the sub-regional carriers use Boeing 737s. There are plans in future to extend the runway so that it can receive even bigger aircrafts like the 767s, the 777s. And when we have done that extension of the runway, going very fast. In fact, it is one of the fastest growing in West Africa. So it's going to make Kumasi Airport one of the safest airports in this country. Because not only for night landing and night takeoff, you know that because Kumasi is in the middle of the rainforest, sometimes early in the morning the weather is very misty or foggy. And many times passengers are taking off from Accra, and if the plane is unable to land, it turns around and goes back. This time, even if the weather is foggy or misty, the instrument landing system will guide the plane straight. While the instrument landing system was bringing us in, the runway lights too were lighted so the pilot could see that he was coming to land on the runway.
Away from that, the United Nations Development Programme and the various political parties in this country have instituted a joint political party support system project dubbed JPAS to strengthen democratic governance in Ghana. The JPAS project, which spans over a 2.5-year period, has an overall aim to increase public interest and trust in political parties. Head of Governance at the UNDP said the JPAS project has become necessary following an assessment of the internal processes of political parties in Ghana.
The project comprises 3 main components, including internal democracy, women and youth empowerment, and election results monitoring. Under Women and Youth Empowerment, the JPAS project seeks to focus on the development of mentorship for aspiring women leaders. Also under the election results monitoring, the JPAS project would review with political parties best practices in the field of election results monitoring with a view to pursuing a new and a joint party election results monitoring system as was done in 2012. Head of Governance at the UNDP, Jane Uredu-Yeboah, said the project will help increase public trust in political parties. Some political party leaders at the workshop lauded the project.
We have been having discussions. We have focal persons and their alternates having discussions with the UNDP. So the parties have a very solid input. I can say that this is a program that is owned by the political parties.
I'm excited about this process because it's not the UNDP imposing something on us. It is the political parties that sat and evolved our own internal difficulties, found out what we needed to do. We sat and went through a series of stages, and we concluded on these 3 thematic areas that we decided that youth is an important resource for our political party mobilization. The presence of our young people in political parties cannot be discounted.
A representative of the Electoral Commission, Joseph Kwekwa Samoa, said the project will promote and increase confidence in participation in the 2016 general elections, as well as to increase confidence in election monitoring.
Civil society, the media, to make sure that we all work together to really protect the credibility of the elections in this country. It is not in doubt that the autonomy and the capacity of the Electoral Commission in Ghana is intact. Although there are certain challenges, but as a commission or as an institution, we must work daily to ensure that we improve our operational and technical efficiencies.
Benjamin Matti, a strange husband of Joyce G Mensa, says the wife's claims that she has never been tested positive of HIV are untrue.
We have a daughter in actual sense, and we had to go through the PMTCT, Prevention of Mother-to-Child Transmission of HIV process before we were able to give birth to the girl, and she is actually negative. So she's not a stranger to me. I know perfectly and vividly that she is positive.
How long were you together?
We have been together for the past 3 years. In actual sense, when I met her, you know, because we've all created acquaintance, we all knew we were HIV positive as a result of the fact that my friend, I had a discussion with her that she was having difficulties in going to the hospital and going through the long queue. I got to know that she was HIV positive. And then that is how come I also came in and told her that, look, I could help you by, showing you somebody who could give you, a quick service when you go to the hospital without you going to the long queue. So that is how come we got to know of our status. And then from there, we pick it up from there. We started knowing each other. She started telling me her story. I started telling her my story, and then that was it. When it comes to evidence, then I saw evidence.
Like?
The results, lab results, were shown to me, which shows that she was positive.
At where?
The lab results was at the Kolibus Central Lab.
What year was that?
I think since it was it 2007? That was what I was scripted. In actual sense, the lab result was done when she was pregnant with her first son, and that was in 2007. Yeah, the HIV medications are not a straitjacket medication to be given to everybody. Based on your type, then after a series of lab tests is being done, then they will know which type of medication to be given to you. So yes, she was taking her medications, I was taking my medications, but we were together. So at times I do call her, it's time for you to take your medication, so come on, get up and go and take your medication. Yeah, so I'm very much aware of the fact that she is taking the medication.
Do you see her taking it physically?
Of course, yes, I see her taking medication physically. Yes.
Can you tell the viewers exactly why she did all this? The reason why she did all this?
Yeah. She had a good intention, trying to take away the stigma which was actually taunting the child.
But the mother of two, who is at the center of the confusion, Joyce G Mensa, insists she's HIV negative and has been responding to some of the issues raised by her ex-husband. I spoke with her earlier on News Desk. Joyce G Mensa is here with me in the studio. We'll speak about this over the next few minutes. Joyce, you had your ex-husband.
Yeah.
What do you have to say to that?
It's quite interesting. Yeah, that he could do that. I mean, he is my ex-husband. If now that he's my ex, if anyone asked me what I know about him concerning his health status, there's no way I could do that because I don't have the right to do that. No matter what his health status is, whether HIV or whatever it is, I can't do that.
Let's go through some of the issues he spoke about. According to him, before you had your daughter, you had to go through, before you had your son, you had to go through testing, and that's where he first saw your test results.
No, I don't think my son, my first child is a boy, and I had that boy before meeting my ex-husband.
Did you ever go through any testing while you were with him, with the child?
When I was still with my ex-husband, like going through HIV testing, no.
Did you ever practice mother-child transmission prevention?
No.
You didn't. But you realize that according to...
Yeah, he mentioned PMTCT. Yeah. It's supposed to be part of the Ghana Youth Commission.
That we know, but according to him, it's only because...
people who go through PMTCT are people who are living with HIV. And there are lots of cases where mothers who are HIV positive have gone through PMTCT and they've had their babies free from HIV.
That's true. My question is,
what I mean is,
if you didn't have HIV, why would your ex-husband say that you practiced PMTC while you had your child?
How is it practiced? How is PMTCT practiced? Can you tell me?
In other words, breastfeeding was not part of it.
Breastfeeding is part of PMTCT. If you are a person living with HIV and you have a baby, that doesn't mean you can't breastfeed. There are lots of mothers who go through PMTCT breastfeeding and their baby.
But you took precaution, basically.
You are trying to indirectly tell me that I'm HIV positive and I took precaution.
No. Your ex-husband, in the video we listened to, made mention of the fact that, as part of proof, that indeed you were lying about lying.
That is...
You practiced PMTC when you had your daughter.
I'm asking, how is PMTCT practiced? It is practiced by people living with HIV. And it's not any strange practice. If you are HIV infected and you are pregnant, you go through that. You are given HIV medication. The medication protects the baby from the womb. Therefore, if you're a mother with HIV, you can still have your baby without HIV. That is what we call PMTCT. And it is only people with HIV who practice PMTCT. And I'm saying that I don't have HIV. He is somewhere saying
and so your husband, your ex-husband, is lying about that?
Yes.
Great. Now let's talk about how you met. From what he's told us, he's mentioned of a very elaborate story of how you met.
He did. Naplas Ghana, like in my previous stories, is still the same thing I've been saying over and over again. Because when I was ejected from my house, the only place I could find solace was with the people living with HIV. I was going there. That was where I met him. I mean, I didn't really...
So that bit of the story is true, that indeed...
I didn't really meet him in the office of...
Well, visit myjoyonline.com for more on that. However, turn attention to some labor issues now. The Industrial and Labor Division of an Accra High Court has granted government interlocutory injunction against 12 labor unions as the workers fall within the essential services. Kobna Chenchen Boatin was a man there for us. He's joined me over the telephone for insights as far as this is concerned. Hello, Kobna. Explain this to us, the ruling, really.
Well, indeed, today, as viewers are aware, there was a court case about the labor issue, the impasse between government and the various labor unions who actually went on strike, but were compelled to return to their various workposts because because the government had earlier secured an ex parte motion. And with the ex parte motion that was granted government, it had a validity of 8 days. And that 8-day period has actually elapsed there. So the court actually presided over by the very same judge who actually sat on this particular case as well. That's Justice Saeed Jan, actually instructed that if government wanted to ensure that the various labor unions did not embark on another strike action, they needed to file a new suit, a new writ, which actually they did. Now, in court today was representatives from the various labor unions. We had representatives from the physicians, assistants, Ghana Registered Nurses Association, Health Services Workers Union, NAS, TEU, NAGRAT. A number of them actually were there today, advancing the cause that the judge should actually dismiss the case by government. Government was actually seeking to get them to not actually go for any strike action. So the case was to prevent them. Hello, Kevin?
Right, I'm listening.
Okay, so the suit was to prevent them from embarking on any legal action, any strike action, any strike action, until the final hearing of the case was due. So today in court, the judge, hearing both sides, actually pronounced a judgment saying that the kind of damage that a strike action by these labor unions will actually cause the government will be irreparable. There's a particular quote of what he said. Yes, the exact quote of what he said. Okay. Well, I just
right.
But anyway.
That's fine. That's fine. What is the span of this injunction?
Well, the injunction is such that defendants. I talk of the various labor unions. They are the defendants in this case, and the executives. They are being restrained from embarking upon any legal action. Now, the problem with this particular issue here, well, I'm told by lawyers for the defendants, is that the court didn't actually specify whether it's in relation to just the Tier 2 pension. The court just says they shouldn't embark upon any strike action. So now that is the bane of the issue with regards to the defense counsel. So I've been speaking to Godfrey Dame, who is actually who was representing the various labor unions, who said they are actually going to appeal this particular decision, and they feel that they're actually going to appeal this decision by the judge. They feel they have not been treated fairly, and they'll also be seeking interpretation in the Supreme Court. You know, there was an issue in court today about whether or not there's a constitutional provision that gives people, any citizen of the country, the right to actually embark on a strike action. There was a bit of a back and forth, but the court failed to pronounce judgment on that, and says he's leaving that to the Supreme Court or any other court of higher jurisdiction to actually pronounce on that. So they said they'll be seeking further clarification on that particular subject matter as well.
Government also sought the court to define its position as the sole appointee of trustee for the management of the Tier 2 pension scheme. How did that pan out at the end of the day?
Well, today's case didn't take that into consideration. Today's case was solely on whether or not the interlocutory injunction was to be granted or not. So after this case, there's supposed to be another hearing. We are yet to get to know the exact date for that hearing. There's supposed to be another hearing that will take consideration of that particular case you just mentioned.
Let's talk about this appeal. What did counsel for the 12 labor unions say to you as far as when this appeal will take place?
Well, they will be filing this appeal in the next 21 days. You know, by the court process and the court's regulations. Once the judgment is made, you have 21 days to file an appeal, or then you just let it go. So, speaking to Godfrey Dame, that's what he said, that they will be filing an appeal within the next 21 days, and they are actually disappointed by the judgment, and they'll be looking forward to a review.
Let's talk about the various labor unions that made representation in court today. What did they say about this judgment?
Well, none of them actually spoke to me, and I mean, all of us who were there, all the media houses there present, none of them actually passed any comment to us. That's why we actually got in touch with their lawyer, who spoke on their behalf and said they are
How would you describe your demeanor after the ruling?
Well, before the court, the judge actually started on the case, most of them appeared quite optimistic. I actually spoke to a couple of them. They were so optimistic that, you know what, the court is going to give them the go-ahead to embark on any action if they so deem it necessary. You know, but afterwards, after, you know, everyone was out in a very moody, you know, they all had moody faces and all, and showing signs of disappointment. Quite shocked by the fact that the court has actually passed such a judgment.
But lastly, though, all 12 labor unions do not fall within essential services, do they?
Exactly the case. But, you know...
So how did that issue come up in court today?
Okay, so now this is the situation. They filed one case. All the labor unions filed one case. So now if you file a case and you are with me and there are certain things that affect me, it totally affects all of us. In the end, that's how it pans out. You know, so that's how come there was that particular issue was there. And another thing was that the defendants argued on the fact that it is their legal right to embark on a demonstration. That was where the plaintiff here, I mean, government. Argued that it's not the case. There's no constitutional provision that seems to suggest that it's a legal provision for anyone who chooses to say, I'm not too happy about this, so I can go to court. So it's a legal mandate I have. That was how come the second aspect of this particular judgment also came in, that because the defendants argued on that tangent, bearing in mind that there isn't really any constitutional provision on that, they didn't have a case. So in that regard...
We'll leave it here for now. I would continue this conversation in subsequent broadcasts, perhaps digest a bit of the labor laws against the constitutional provisions. Thank you very much, Kwabna. Kwabna Chenchehene Boateng joined us from court, where government has been granted an interlocutory injunction, which means that the 12 labor unions cannot strike. Now, the United Nations development projects, I'm sure we've seen that already. So here's what I'm going to do. I'll take a quick break. When I come back, we'll check out what's happening in Nigeria, where two of the country's largest labor unions in the oil and gas sector have decided to strike. And the strike has entered day 2. Will it not affect oil production in the country? Don't go away. We'll find out soon.